I visited New York City, specifically Manhattan, for a really short trip. And of course, I had to do some street photography. I met up with my friend Conway and we spent about an hour during rush hour, and there were 5 things that I learned in that photo walk. Number 1. Crosswalks are a great opportunity to study potential subjects. Because they're waiting, and if you're not jaywalking, you have a moment to assess if this person's going to be an interesting subject. You also have a moment to prepare and get your settings correct. The second thing I learned is to use skyscrapers to your advantage. The presence of them and the absence of them can do wonders. The presence of skyscrapers can help block light and create some interesting light and shadows. The absence of them are also good, especially on a bright sunny day. You can catch a lot of people squinting, so they're a little bit off guard, and you can make sure that your photo is well lit. I made several mistakes while shooting, and I'm a bit nervous about sharing them, but I think someone here might benefit from them. So I was shooting with the A7C II and the 50mm f2.5G lens. This lens has an aperture ring, but there is no lock to make sure that it doesn't move around. So while the design of this lens is really awesome for a tactile, physical user experience, there was definitely a couple times when I accidentally moved it to 22, and as a result, that slowed down my shutter speed because I think I was shooting aperture priority and there was a lot of motion blur in some of my shots. There is no lock, so you have to be keeping an eye on this. There is probably a setting in the camera body that will tell the camera to just pay attention to the aperture that you set in the camera body and not the one on the lens, but I have to figure that out, and it just occurred to me just now. The other mistake is thinking that 50mm was going to be just right. And while I'm a big fan of zoom lenses, I don't think I would use a zoom lens for street. The sidewalks in New York City can be pretty narrow, so you tend to be closer to your subjects. And I think the more populated a place is, the wider your lens should be. So I finally understand when people say that 35mm or 28mm is just right. I don't have a 35mm and I've been avoiding that focal length for so long because I could never really get used to it or see the value in it. I have a 24mm Samyang lens, so I think I'll start out with that. And if I can't get any closer, I'll probably cave and get a 35. Well, every now and then she comes to visit me and brings her. The other mistake that I think I was making was not being brave enough to have people look at my lens. There were plenty of shots I took that had people look right at me, but not nearly enough. I think I take a lot of photos of people caught off guard, and I think the worst kind, for me, in my opinion, are taking photos of people looking at their phone. Actually, no, I think the worst kind is taking photos of people's backs. I find those photos, they don't really engage you. I really want to take photos of people that make you stop and stare, and oftentimes it's the eye contact. I'm pretty new to street photography, and I'm also an anxious person. For me, I'm trying to use street photography to work on that. And for a while, I didn't have the courage or bravery to take a photo of someone looking right at my lens. In Polly B's video on Jeremy Page, he says, "I can see the photo they wanted to take, and what I'm looking at is the photo they settled to take." And my God, he was totally talking about me. It's just me personally as a growth goal. I want to take more photos of people engaged with me. And I think it boils down to something really simple. What are you trying to do? And once you have a go-to answer for that question, everything will fall into place. Sometimes people like to over-rationalize what they're doing. They feel like they have to have an assignment or project or photo accreditation in order to legitimize getting into people's faces to take their photo. But the reason can be really simple, and that is, I'm just taking photos. Even though some people might feel defensive, and yes, I've had a lot of confrontations where people did not want me to take their photo, and all you have to do is be prepared with an answer. I'm just taking photos. I really like the way you looked. You look great. And if they don't want you to take their photo, delete it, move on. It's not worth it. Over some drinks, I shared my anxieties with my brother Andrew, who is a photojournalist and a documentarian who has done his fair share of street photography. And here's a pep talk that I wanted to share with you all.
If you're a photographer, then declare it. Declare it to the world, and don't let anyone take that away from you, because that's yours. That's who you are.
Yeah.
And you're not bothering anyone. They're in fucking trouble. Okay? So people are, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. If you are a serious photographer, it's going to happen. Like, people are going to come up to you, or they're going to be like, oh, and that's it. Just let it happen. It happens to everyone. So just let it happen. It's nothing against you. It's their problem. Just let it happen.
I really cherish all the advice that my brother gave me that night, and it has lifted up my spirits a bit to keep going. So the next few videos, I think I'm going to combine a little bit of gear talk, because I love talking about gear, as well as sharing my journey in overcoming my doubts, insecurities, and low confidence when it comes to taking an engaging photo. So if you're into that, please subscribe. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!